All right, so as we get going, so the first thing I want you to do is to actually meet the school counselors so that you know who your kids are working with. So I am Ruth Kerrigan, and I have the A and the B part of the alphabet for last names. And Josh Murphy is also on the call. He has a C through F part of the alphabet. Mrs. Seelig is G through L. She's on the call. Mrs. Cunha has M through P end of the alphabet. She's also on the call. Mr. Amato has the end of the alphabet Q through Z. And in the center on the bottom, we have Miss Rivera, and she's our administrative assistant and really kind of the heart and soul of our office. So if your kids need to see us and maybe their counselor isn't available, because that does happen, we're in meetings, we're in classrooms, we're doing all sorts of things. She's always somebody that the students can talk to and she can make sure that we get the kids the help that they need right away. So the school counselor is really what our job is. We cover 3 different domains for as school counselors. So the first thing that we do is we cover the academic domain. So we're the ones that work with your kids on their schedules, making sure that if they're having trouble, that we're reaching out to them. You know, once we have the quarter grades and we know if a student's having trouble, we're reaching out, we're trying to put together plans to help support them academically. We also help with some personal and social needs as well. For kids that are having, you know, going through some tough times, we can certainly assist with that. And also a big part of our job is college and career readiness. So those are basically the 3 domains that the school counselors take care of. And then we have some folks in our office, our transition room folks and our adjustment counselors who actually are dealing primarily with just personal and social needs. And a lot of times these are more of those continuing things. So if it's more than something the school counselor can work with, we might transfer them to one of our adjustment counselors. And for our adjustment counselor staff, we have Mrs. Seiden, and she is working with students this year who are in grades 10 and 12. And next year she will go with those 10th graders as their 11th graders, and she'll pick up the freshmen. On the top row on the right, we have Mrs. Robichaud, and right now she's with our students who are grades 9 and 11. Again, she will follow them through graduation. On the bottom 2 corners, we have our transition room counselors. That's Mrs. Shine and Ms. Duskevich. And then the pictures in the center are actually our interns this year. So we're really fortunate to have Felicia Barbosa with us. Felicia is a full-time employee for the district. She works with our English language learner students, but she's also doing an internship with Mrs. Robichaud in social work. And Ms. Shea on the center bottom is one of our school adjustment counselor interns. She's also a Whitman-Hanson graduate. So these are the folks that are dealing primarily with, you know, just personal and social counseling for kids. So that's the support staff. We're all together for the most part in the Student Support Center and school counseling. And you might be wondering, what's the transition room for? Well, that's for students if they're out, maybe for hospitalization. It could be out for social, emotional concern, coming back from, you know, a mental health hospitalization, or it could be somebody that's coming back from a medical. So we have a special program for those kids when they're coming back, so they're not just jumping right back into school. We want to help give them an opportunity to transition well so that they can be successful. So that's really who our staff is that we're working with. And as we get going, we want to just encourage you to check email, to check the Panther Press. That's one thing that we actually put a lot of information in every year. Excuse me, every week. We also encourage you to encourage your kids to check their school email. I know when I was in classes yesterday and today, when I asked how many checked their email, some of them did, but some of them certainly did not. And that's how we communicate with them, either through our Twitter, Instagram. We also have Google Classrooms for the students, but definitely we put out a lot of important information through, again, school email, Twitter, Instagram, Google Classroom for the kids, and also through the Panther Press. So please stick with us as we're doing that, because we're sharing a lot of important information. Also, if your kids need to see their counselor, there are a couple different ways they can do that. They can just stop into the school counseling office. They can check in with Ms. Rivera and see if we're available. And if we are, we're very happy to meet with them and talk with them at that moment we can. They also can email us, or these are QR codes that are all over the building, and they are welcome to fill out one of those. And those actually turn into, we get an email when that happens. So again, we're accessible, easy to see, and all the kids need to do is use any one of those 3 options to get in touch with their school counselor. Okay, so our agenda tonight, we're going to talk about why does my child need a plan? Why post-secondary education? Making the plan, what are the important components about that? the role of the school counseling department. We'll talk a little bit about colleges and the students with learning differences. And at the end, we'll look at a 4-year guide to the college planning process. And I should have mentioned before that in your, when we sent the email to you with the links, there also is a copy of the slideshow. There's also a version in Portuguese and also in Spanish if you need that. And additionally, there's also a link to all of the clubs and activities that we have this year when we talk about that a little bit later on. So again, those resources are there for you. All righty. So in terms of what your plan for life after high school, although tonight we're really talking about early college planning, I think it's really important to note that any of these plans, 4-year school, 2-year college, post-secondary training, military, all of them are good plans. And what we want is your kids to make the plan that's best for them. We certainly don't think that a 4-year college is the right thing for everybody, and we're not trying to push that, but we want to push them into some really great opportunities where they can get marketable skills. And there are lots of ways to do that through all of these options that are on the screen. About 65% of our kids last year did go to a 4-year college, and they went to all different types of schools and some of the best, schools in the country. We had kids last year get into, one of our students get into Harvard and MIT and chose to go to MIT. We had a student get into Yale and go. And certainly those are some of the top schools, but they're awesome colleges all across the country. We have some great schools here in New England. So again, a lot of our kids are heading to 4-year colleges. Some of our kids will head to Massasoit or to Quincy College, and that's with a 2-year degree. And we had probably about 18 to 20% did that. Some of our students will go for post-secondary training. And when we talk about that, we're talking about things like the trades, electrician, plumbing, HVAC, cosmetology, EMT, those things that our kids can do. And some of those are very, very high paying and great occupations that don't require college, but do require specialized training. So we're encouraging them to take a look at those options. I'm the mom of a son who works in the HVAC field, and he does incredibly well and has no college loan debt. So certainly we understand that that can be a great pathway for some of our kids. And then military. Usually every year, maybe 5 to 8 or 10 kids will go to the military, and that can be a great option as well. So again, although tonight we're talking about college, we understand that that's not the best route for everybody, but what we do want them to do is to make sure that they have a plan that is right for them. And that's what we're really geared at trying to do, starting the moment that they walk into the high school. And right now, what are the students are thinking about? Well, probably thinking a lot about TikTok, their music, Taylor Swift, whether they got tickets or they didn't get tickets to that show. But what we want them to start thinking about is kind of what happens in the future. Okay, who are they? What do they think they want to do? Are they thinking college? Do they want a career? Are they thinking military? What are those options? Because they really don't have a lot of time. I know when I was in class yesterday, one of the students said, "What are you doing here talking about this? We're only sophomores. We're not even juniors yet." And the reason for that is now is really the time to start planning, when you're in 9th grade and when you're in 10th grade. Most of our kids who apply to college, when they're seniors, they're applying by November 1 of senior year. So that means that they have to come into senior year with a pretty clear idea of what it is that they want to do and where it is that they want to apply. And the way they get to that point is that they actually start doing that work now. As freshmen and sophomores, they're starting to think about that, starting to narrow down some things or just explore lots of different possibilities. And then junior year, they're going out and doing some college visits, if that's what the plan is, to go to college, and really coming back to school in September of senior year, knowing, this is the list of colleges I've visited, and this is where I want to apply. So this is why we're starting this now. Having a good plan makes this whole process a lot easier as they get along in their high school years. And part of the way that we help our kids with this process is through our Panther Pathways MyCap program. So I know this might be a little confusing because we have our career innovation pathways. Those are the new programs that we started this year with the pathways in healthcare and in business. And those kids get lots of opportunities, but also we have a career planning program for all of our kids that we call Panther Pathways. And we do that through lessons that we do with them. In fact, one of the parts of that program is a career connections fair that's coming up next Tuesday on December 5th during B block, which runs basically from 9 to 10. So Maddie Story, who was our head of our Innovation Pathways program, is planning that. We've got all sorts of different career professionals coming in. I think she's got about 35 to 40 of them. And your kids are welcome to attend that. So many of them signed up today and yesterday while we were in classes, but feel free to scan that QR code if your child would like to sign up to attend the Career Connections Fair. And that's part of our Panther Pathways program. In fact, we have an entire curriculum, which I'm not going to read through it all, but you can see that we have a very purposeful, comprehensive curriculum, and we're in classes with your kids a lot over the course of the year or the 4 years that they're in school. I think the last time I counted up, we're usually in classes about 100 times. Counselors are in about 100 times over the course of the year with different lessons that we're doing. So in ninth grade, we're just in doing the signs of suicide workshop, and the kids that are in health class right now, or PE and health, we'll be going in and doing our Peace Builder workshops in January. We'll be working with them on their first interest inventory through our Naviance program in February. Again, just to kind of get started, 10th graders, we're going to be going with Do What You Are workshops in social studies classes in April. So again, this is just kind of a sampling of the different things and the different lessons that we're doing. And every student goes through this program so that we're hoping to give every student the foundation that they need to make good plans for what life is going to be after high school, whether it's, post-secondary training, college, whatever it is that they want to do, so that we can help them get there. And why go to college? Because in most cases, not all for sure, but in most cases, the more training and education people have, the more they're going to earn. And that's one part of it. When Mrs. Seeley talks about Naviance, we will also probably look at the Occupational Outlook Handbook. We also want kids to be thinking training and education, but also looking at careers in the future that are growing, that have good incomes. So we're teaching them all about these things as we're working with them over the 4 years. And you can see here that typically the more education people have, the more money they will be able to earn. And I know when I was in classes today, I was talking to the students about, people going into skilled trades are probably in the bachelor, master's range in terms of the earning potential that they have. So again, just kind of an interesting slide to look at why getting that training and education is important. And one thing we know for sure is that if your child wants to go to college, there is college or post-secondary training program for every student that wants to reach higher. Before I was a school counselor, I spent 15 years in college admissions. I'm a former college admissions director. And I can tell you in that time, I worked with many, many students and many colleagues in higher education settings across New England. And again, if your kids want to go to college, there are colleges out there for them. And part of what we do is help them find the schools that are right for them. So making the plan starts now. We need to make sure that we're looking at academics. That's a really important part of the process. Looking at extracurricular activities. Well, in fact, we shared that file with you. So if your kids really aren't into anything yet and you're trying to help them find something, take a look at that file for activities and see what they might want to do. Career exploration, going to those career fairs, doing those career lessons with us, talking to parents, teachers, and school counselors. Also thinking about finances, because college is expensive. And so you want to be starting to think about that now, and also making sure that you're talking to your kids about maybe looking at some schools that are affordable as well for your family. So again, it's just one little piece of the puzzle, but starting to talk about these things now. And at this point, I am going to turn things over to Mrs. Cunha to talk a little bit about looking at the admissions process.
Hi, everybody. So when we look at the admissions process, I would say the very first thing that admissions is going to look at is your student's academics. And that starts very early on by creating a solid transcript that builds upon each year. So a high school transcript is the most important part of the college admissions process, and the GPA matters. We want kiddos to take classes that they're comfortable in, but is also challenging to them. So if your kiddo is getting an A consistently in academic English, we would love them to challenge themselves in maybe the next year taking an honors class. And same if they are maybe a rock star in science, trying one of our in honors, maybe trying an AP class. And we can show you in a couple slides like what the differences are and how is that is weighted. we want to, you can utilize Infinite Campus, your child's Google Classroom, to keep in Naviance to keep all of the information on track. So this is what college admissions looks at when students are applying. So if you look at the first three, really it is the academics that your kiddos are taking, the grades they're getting in those classes, and the subjects. And then after that, it would be admission test scores, which is a little tricky now. Some schools don't really require SATs, some do. For maybe some of the Ivy Leagues or some of the more prestigious colleges. I was looking with a student today, and she was very happy to find that all of her state colleges and universities for first-year students are now test optional, and there's information on how to find those schools out when that time comes, called Fair Test. And then the next thing is the essay and the writing sample. So if we look at everything above, it's all just data, your kiddos' GPAs and admission test scores, but then the essay and the writing sample is what they're going to hear your student's voice. So really who they are and what they are as a person, probably some of their likes or their strengths or what they have found out about themselves over the course of high school. And that will be a really important piece of their application as well. Kiddos demonstrating interest, what that means is like going and looking at schools, checking out the websites, visiting campuses, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what the college admissions is looking for when the student is applying, and that's all stuff that they can work on now.
Okay.
This is what a final transcript will look like. So this has the senior year on it. So when your kiddo is done and graduated, that's what a complete transcript looks like. When your students are applying to college, what the colleges will see is the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, because our grades only post at the end of every year. So the transcript will be complete only after graduation or at graduation. So we want to make sure that the kiddos are taking rigorous courses and that their transcript tells the story. I always say to kiddos, like, yeah, you took all academic classes, you did okay freshman year, but like, look at you now, you're a sophomore, you're challenging yourself in an honors class, you figured out how to study, because that 8th to 9th transition can be a little bit of a struggle. And the transcript telling a story and is really great for some kiddos who maybe didn't do so well freshman year, but can now turn it around and show that they can take rigorous courses, that they're ready for the curriculum that will be at a college. And if you look at the top left, you'll see the cumulative unweighted GPA, and then the weighted GPA is below it. Those two numbers are different because of the different classes. So all academic classes, GPA is the grade point average. So all classes are taken into account at the same weight for the unweighted GPA. Every single class that you take, whether it's gym or honors English, they're all taken in at the same weight. However, the weighted GPA just takes your core classes, your English, your math, your social studies, your science, a language, and they will take, if it's an honors class, it's weighted a little heavier. Same for an AP class, it's weighted a little heavier. So say a kiddo got a, so I think I'm jumping ahead, I apologize.
Okay,
I just talked really fast. Because that grade point average is what the kiddos are working for in that transcript. Those A's and those B's and those C's transfer to numbers. And then if you go one more over, you'll see that, say a kiddo gets a B- in a academic class, and then, but they get a B- in an honors class, that's half a point higher. And then if they get a B- in an AP class, that's a full point higher. So that's why we want kiddos to challenge themselves, and it's okay to get a B- in an AP class instead of, just kind of getting by and maybe getting that A- in an academic class. So this is our college admissions funnel, and I'll give Miss Kerrigan credit. This is her masterpiece. So it's just to give you a visual of the more challenging academic rigor that your kiddo is going to put in, and the better their GPA is, so therefore the grades that they carry with them over the 4 years. And then those potential SAT scores, and their resume, which is like the extracurricular activities that they're in, perhaps if they've had a job or two, any volunteer stuff that they've done. The more that they do and the better they do it, the more options. They're going to have many, many choices moving forward when it comes to applying to college. However, if they don't have a great GPA, they haven't challenged themselves, they haven't done any volunteer work, they really haven't joined a club, then they have limited choices. And a lot of our kiddos are going to balance themselves and be right there in the middle, and that is totally fine. They're going to balance their classes for the ones that they're strongest in. Their SAT scores are going to be fine. Their resumes are going to be great, and they're going to have a lot of choices to choose from. This is what UMass's and the Mass State universities require as admission standards for kiddos who are applying to their colleges and universities. It is nothing that, it's just, it's a visual and it's there. It's 4 years English, 4 years math, 3 science, 2 social studies, foreign language, so on and so forth. However, I say it doesn't matter, although it does, because at Whitman-Hanson, our students' grad requirements prepare them to be successful in not just meeting but exceeding these standards. So if your kiddo's going to get their diploma and they're graduating, they have met and exceeded the standards that is required to get into a Mass State university. So this one's a little tricky at the moment. Currently, for first-year students, as I had said before, the SATs are optional. However, like if a kiddo doesn't put their all into their academics, and we know that they test really well, perhaps if they have one of those lower GPAs and they know that they can sit down for an SAT and get a pretty good score, that might help with their application to any of the UMass's or state universities, because it's a sliding scale. So what it's saying is, if you don't have a really great GPA, you're going to need a better SAT score. And if you have a really high GPA, you're not going to have to worry too much about that, leaning on that SAT score, or at the moment, even giving that SAT score into the school. Because schools, especially if you have like a 3.0, 3.2 for a lot of the state colleges, you're in a pretty good position to potentially be getting into those schools.
Okay.
The Commonwealth Commitment is a great program that is starting at one of the community colleges. And if you are to maintain in a GPA of 3.0 and you can complete your associates, that's that 2-year degree, in 2.5 years, then what it does is it freezes tuition, and mandatory fees for all 4 years if you were to then transfer to a 4-year school. The reduction right now is about $5,000, a little over the $5,000 over the 4 years, through like rebate tuition of the mandatory fees and another mass transfer tuition credit once the student enrolls into a bachelor program. So it's a great way to save and maybe just start the college process at a community college before they transfer to a 4-year school. I know, I'm sorry, I apologize. I touched on this a little bit already, that since a lot of schools have gone test optional, a lot of the state colleges and universities, some of the private institutions are still requiring them. Some of them still like if you take them, so then after you're accepted, you can send it in and it can help a kiddo for some merit money. And we offer the PSATs at Whitman-Hanson. Our kiddos actually just took them last month, those who wanted to. If your kids do that, there is free SAT prep through Khan Academy. So they can link their College Board account with the Khan Academy account, and it takes all the questions that maybe the kiddo didn't do so well on, maybe the certain type of worded question, and it gives those kids those examples to be practicing, particularly. So instead of practicing all the stuff they got right, it'll give them some of the ones that maybe they didn't do so great on. It's a little more personalized.
All right, so hopefully everybody is able to get into their son or daughter's Infinity Campus account to help keep track of their grades, how they're doing, their progress, their attendance. All of that is all important pieces to their success in their classes. So if you don't, or you're having trouble with Infinity Campus, let us know. We can get in touch with the technology department for some assistance with that. The next thing we're going to look into is Naviance, which is we have mentioned before, but it's our online tool that we use to help students navigate this whole process, help them do some career searches, help them do their interest inventories. All of this information is stored in there. So basically they're building their electronic portfolio, which is really great to have and see that progression over the 4 years. Their GPA will always be stored in Naviance, as well as their standardized test scores. So if they take the PSATs, their SATs, any AP exams, all of that will also be stored in there. So you get a full snapshot of your child, but also how they compare in this whole process in looking at different colleges. So if we want to take a quick overview, the one thing is for all the 9th grade parents on the call, there really isn't going to be that much information and data that's going to be stored in there because they're just building that now as a 9th grader. But for our 10th grade parents, that will all be in there. Their GPA, which again, they received today and yesterday while we were in their classes through their transcript. And if they took the PSAT scores, those will be stored and available to see through Naviance as well. So everybody has their own login. Your son or daughter will log in through their Clever account. You as a parent, though, can have your own separate login. So if that's something that you are interested in, just reach out to your child's school counselor and we can get you your own username and password so you don't have to worry about going in with your child.
So our 10th graders can actually log in to this through Clever. In 9th graders, we are going to be working with them and getting them up and running in the next couple months so that they have their accounts.
So this is the screen, obviously, when you first log in that you can see. If you go under, it's kind of blue with the initials. So Pat Panther right there. That's kind of some quick information that you can search. The main one is under My Account. So that's over to the left. You can see the data of your child's GPA when you scroll to the bottom. So it'll be the weighted and unweighted GPA, both explained by Ms. Cunha earlier. So both of that will be listed right there for you, and that's where they can see that information. If you scroll back up to the top, there's also another tool that they can start using for a resume, building their resume. So when they start doing some volunteer work, they have a job, any extracurricular activities that they're involved with, they can start to kind of record this information here. And that way, you know, come senior year when they are either applying for college or a post-secondary training program or even a job, all of that's kind of already stored there for them. So it's a little less having to retrieve that information, and you can even enter in some information in for them as well. So it gives you nice kind of chunks of different categories, and a lot of it's like a different drop-down menu. So it's pretty easy to kind of keep track of. It looks like a lot of information that you had to input, but really a lot of it was just drop-down stuff that you had to do, which is kind of easy and nice and compact right there for you. If we go into the top under the self-discovery, that's where all those interest inventories are stored that we had mentioned before as part of our curriculum. So and then when they are completed, you can view the results. So right now for the freshmen, in the springtime, they'll be completing the career interest profiler. And then for our sophomores, we will be doing the Do What You Are personality assessment. So that way you will have that data in there too to see, hey, where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? What are they saying that they like? You know, where their interests lie, you know, what are they really curious to learn more about? And that is really what we want them to start doing right now, is to start thinking about, hey, you know what, I might be good in a profession that helps other people. What are some of those ideas? And by taking these interest inventories, they will give you some of those career choices that would be best matched to your personality, your likes, your interests, and your strengths. So all of that data is all stored in there. There's some other interest inventories in here. Some of the other classes, like the financial literacy course that they'll take junior year, uses another one of these tools. I believe it's the Career Cluster Finder or Strengths Explorer. Mm-hmm. So they can take that, and a good question in the chat, how many times can they take it? Certainly that first time, but a lot of times we do reset them come their senior year. So, you know, we change, our interests change all throughout our lifetime, but certainly as a high school student, what they do their freshman year, whether they took it seriously or not, oftentimes that does change a little bit come senior year. So we can go ahead and get that reset for them. If you click on the colleges tab, later on in their college search process, once they're matching some of their career choices to colleges, they can do an advanced search and look at different criterias that would be important to them in applying to college or the college that they want to attend. And that could have a religious affiliation. It could have an athletic program that they really want to either participate in or they are a fan of. They can choose by city, small city, large city. You can do really a whole bunch of stuff to fine tune that search. So that way you could get a good, well-rounded list of schools that are going to be matched to what I am looking for. Sometimes I would say keep it pretty broad because sometimes if we refine the search too much, then it will filter out some schools that might be a good fit. But that can be something that you can do over and over again as well. If you go back into the careers tab, so when they take that interest inventory, they will be prompted by us to make sure that they pick our like and heart. So you can see that heart kind of showing up, at least 3 to 5 different career choices that they have interest in based on their feedback from the interest inventory. So all of that will be stored there as well as a quick and easy find for you. And if you clicked on athletic trainers, it will give them an overview of the job, what level of education they need. So do I need to have that post-secondary training? Is it a 2-year degree, an associate's degree? Is it a 4-year degree, a bachelor's degree? What do I need in order to be able to do this job? And this gives you a whole great overview of that. You can see how it matches to different personality traits, strengths, weaknesses. It will give you the average salary for what that job makes, and then overview of the skills and daily tasks and activities. And then you can search certainly salary by state. So if you aren't planning to stay in Massachusetts and maybe head someplace a little warmer, then you could see what the average salary is for each of the different states there as well. So really some great information that they always have access to. This is always stored in their Naviance account, and they can always go back to it, and you can look at it with them as well. Under the colleges tab, when they do have a list of schools that they want to take a look at, where that GPA comes back in and those SAT scores that Ms. Cunha was talking about, this is where you can see where that data and that information comes into play to figure out, hey, what's the best list of schools for me to apply to? So we clicked on Bridgewater State, nice local college, affordable. If we take a look at it, it will give you the overview of the makeup of students who attend. What are their majors and most popular majors that they have? How much does it cost based on what your financial family situation is? You can also look up acceptance rates, the college overlap, so you can see where other students from Whitman-Hanson that have applied to Bridgewater, where else are they applying? That will help build that list as well. But the big tool that we always use with our students is under the admissions tab. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to see all the students from Whitman-Hanson over the past at least minimum 10 years that have applied to Bridgewater and what their minimum GPA and SAT score were, and whether their decision was an acceptance, a deferral, or if they were denied. So this is when you're starting to build that college list to say, hey, what would be my reach school? What would be my probable school? What would be a safety school? This is just data based on GPA and SAT scores. So obviously we know that there's a whole bunch more that goes into the application process, but just by standardized test scores and your GPA, by looking at this graph, me as Pat Panther, this looks like a really great school for me to put on my list, and I would consider that more of a safety school for me as well, and perhaps maybe some, financial aid opportunities as well, where my GPA and SAT scores are a little bit higher than that minimum average. So this would be great information to use. And again, this is just data from Whitman-Hanson students. Is not necessarily the minimum criteria for Bridgewater State. You always want to refer to the college website to know exactly what their average GPA and average SAT scores are. But this is a good information to have to know, hey, how are our students from Whitman-Hanson doing with similar GPA and SAT scores applying to the school? How are they doing? The other tool that we use, we'll go on the homepage, is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So that is information all compiled by the U.S. Department of Labor and Statistics, that not only do we want to make sure that students are choosing a career that they're going to like, be happy at, that they're well matched with, you also want to make sure that they're going to have that job available in the future, right? So obviously we know the landscape has changed dramatically from COVID, and it continues to change all the time. So what the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics has done is compiled all that data and put it in this nice, neat format for us to know where are the jobs going to be for the future. And this is a whole separate lesson that we do with our students as well, that we just go into the Occupational Outlook handbook. So you can go, you see on the left-hand column, the occupation groups. You can just choose one of those career clusters, and we can take a look to see what information is available on, we could do architects. So we'll provide the similar information that Naviance does as well, but you can see they like quick facts for them. So this little box right here is really helpful for them. What do I need to do to become an architect? Okay, well, looking at the typical entry level of education, I need a bachelor's degree, so that I know I need to go to school for 4 years. Okay, so that's no problem. That's what my plan was. The average salary looks like about $82,000 per year. So that's a really great profession to go into. So if I have to take out some loans, I know I'm going to be able to pay that back. That's a good overall salary. And then really what we're looking at is the job outlook. So from 2022 to 2032, it is growing at a 5% rate, which is faster than the national average. I think that says 5. Mine's, it's a little small. Okay. So I would say, hey, you know what? This is a great career to continue to pursue. It's going to be there in the future. I am prepared to go to college. That was my plan, a 4-year college. I know I'm going to have a good salary from when I'm done and be able to have a good living. So we use this tool for all of our students to kind of help gauge, is this going to be the right fit for me? You may look at this and say, no, you know what? I don't really want to go to college for 4 years. I'll go for 2. So maybe we can click on the similar occupations to see what else is out there similar to an architect, but perhaps maybe not as much schooling. And it will give you a whole nother list of different occupations. You can see some just require a high school diploma. There are some more bachelor degree programs, but also an associate's degree program. A drafter, what did they do? How do they help engineers and architects? So you can get some more information there. Hey, look, $60,000 per year. That's a lot of money, you know, just to go to school for just 2 years to get that degree to become a drafter and still have a really good wage and living. I could still pay back my loans and still, you know, afford all the other things that I want to do, like on that earlier slide, have that new iPhone and everything else that I want to have. So again, this is looking at where those careers are for the future to make sure that we're choosing colleges and post-secondary training programs that would be best suited for us, but also preparing us for jobs that are going to be there when we're done.
Okay, here we go.
Perfect. So we've kind of already touched on this, but you know, the idea of extracurricular activities and getting involved in them at the high school can be really important, right? I mean, I know a lot of people, Dr. Jones especially, will talk about getting kids connected, kind of, you know, being connected to the school, the community, that kind of thing. With Whitman-Hanson, we do have over 25 clubs and activities that your kiddos can choose from. Like we said, we'll send out sort of that list that, or you'll have access to it. But if you're, you know, your student doesn't see something that's of interest to them, have them come talk to us, or have us, you know, be the sort of middleman to get in contact with Dr. Jones and see if we can get that started. Because really the big thing is, you know, starting freshman year, you really want to start building that resume for, you know, the eventual senior college application process, or just sort of life after high school in general. Because, you know, like we said, right, get involved. What does that look like for your kid? Really, it depends on them. You know, a lot of kids might get a job or volunteer, whether it's for NHS or one of the other honor societies, or even, you know, just on their own because they want to go out and do some sort of service project. Joining extracurricular activities, sports, clubs, theater, that kind of thing, really just kind of gets your kids out of their comfort zone a little bit, make connections with other kiddos in the school, and really just start to build a lot of those soft skills that they can take with them throughout their years of high school, but then well beyond that as well. But the big takeaway is have your kids be selective, right? Just because we say get involved doesn't mean they have to join 25 clubs and activities and join, be a 3-sport athlete. If they want to, great. Might be a lot of time management that they will have to get through. But when it comes to sort of the college application process, the big thing is schools will kind of see that, right? Have your kids join things that they're passionate about or they like. If they're thinking that they want to go to the healthcare field, maybe join the pre-med club. If they're thinking, hey, I want to go into engineering or do something with computer science, talk to Mr. Kozak, join the robotics team. Be intentional with kind of the activities that they join, because when they build that resume, it will kind of give a good picture of who they are specifically.
Yeah. And one thing I just want to add, Mr. Murphy, you mentioned National Honor Society. So kids at the beginning of junior year, they will have an option to be invited into National Honor Society if they meet the GPA. And I believe that's a 3.3 or a 3.4 unweighted GPA. So that's just the first qualification. Then what they look at is your involvement in school activities. Involved in community service, involvement in some type of a leadership role. And those things are very important. So it's the GPA that gets you invited to apply, but it's all of those other things when you fill out the application that will make a big difference in terms of getting into the honor societies. I've been on the committee for the past, 10 years or so. And it's really important that kids are involved in their school community in a meaningful way, that they're involved in community service. And again, that they're a leader in some way. Not everybody can be a captain, but they can be a leader in their organization, leading projects, leading fundraising, things like that. So, all right. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Murphy.
It is totally fine. So the next thing you talk about, right, is finances, especially for thinking about college or even some of these post-secondary training programs after high school. The big thing is you want to start having these conversations with your kiddos about maybe being, I want to say it nicely, realistic, right? College can be very, very expensive. It might be one of those things, right? I remember having those conversations with, my mom. We sat down and we said, hey, we would love to go to a school like Bryant, but it's just not going to work out. One of the state schools made more sense financially for, me and her, sort of like as a family. So be realistic with them, right? If they have a school that they're super, super interested in, it's been their dream school forever, and it's, the Boston College of the world, something like that, then absolutely apply, right? Because it's one of those things where you never know, you might be able to get some scholarships for it. And it can be, in some cases, a little bit cheaper than some of the other options that you might have out there. Start going and looking for college financing webinars. We generally host some of them, or at least, send out that information for MIFA or FAFSA workshops, that kind of stuff, just to start, thinking about what it means to actually save for college and life after high school, and what student loans are and how long they can actually take to pay back, and what $20,000 looks like compared to $120,000 in student loans, right? But then also think about different types of scholarship programs, right? With Whitman-Hanson, we have kids that are involved in Dollars for Scholars. There's local and community scholarships, which if you have any older kiddos at the school that are seniors, a lot of that information comes out sort of after the holiday season in the spring. Look at different online programs. There are things like fastweb.com, College Board, some more national, like sort of nationwide scholarships that could be a good idea to apply for, but having the idea that you might also be competing with 100,000 other students applying for those, whereas a local community scholarship, it's just kiddos within sort of the district area. But finances is big. I mean, we all know eggs are super expensive and gas is ridiculous, and college is fun to pay for. So have those conversations now, because it will be a little bit easier come senior year when that maybe sticker shock kind of hits and you kind of see what the final price might be for a school. And if you have any, like if any of your kiddos have learning differences, right, they're on an IEP, let's say, start talking to us, right, the school counselors, and we can start having these conversations, because there are different services and programs out there. If your kiddo's on an IEP or a 504, right, we might be able to have the ability to apply for accommodations for them for SAT or ACT testing. Something to note that an accommodation at the high school might not be a one-to-one match for what College Board can offer, but if there's something that we can potentially apply for to give your kiddo a better chance to succeed, then we're more than happy to do that. There's just a waiver form that we fill out, or we'd have you fill out, and then we can go through that process. And just note that some admission standards may differ or be modified based on a kiddo's specific learning disability or that kind of thing. So just have a conversation with us and let us know. These are just some of the colleges in the sort of New England area, right, that have specific programs for kiddos with learning disabilities. So if you have any questions, let us know. We can get that information to you. The big question is, right, is your head starting to spin? Probably, right? I'm going to be realistic about that. It's probably very truthful. We're talking about grades, money, right? Finding the right fit. What are your career interests, right? I mean, I know the holiday season's coming up, so your kiddos are probably going to be asked by, Auntie Lorraine, your college roommate's best friend, who just happens to be the person you grew up with, asking them, what are you doing with life after high school? Your head's going to spin, their head's going to spin. It's fine, right? It's natural. I think the big thing is the earlier you start to have these conversations, the better. Don't wait till senior year. The more you utilize us, the more we can help you and just kind of make the process a little bit easier. So with this, right, the roadmap to college, kind of looking at it freshman through senior year. Really, freshman year, I think the big thing is trying to find balance, right? When we're taking these, academic or honors classes, or we're joining a club and maybe playing a couple sports, right? I think the big thing is not biting off more than you can chew, right? We don't want your 9th grade student getting so overwhelmed that they just already start to not like their high school experience, right? We want them to find things that they're interested in, but then also kind of learn how to balance them and still have a fun time, but also succeeding and challenging themselves day to day. They should be learning how to, develop good study habits. It was mentioned earlier, right, that transition from 8th grade to 9th grade can be tough. Tests are real, quizzes are real. Some things pop up. Teachers just say, "Hey, look at this. We're gonna have a quiz on Thursday." So if they're learning how to develop these study habits, that can be super important. And really, another, not to toot our own horns kind of thing, but get to know us, right, as counselors. I think for some it might be intimidating as a freshman to come down to the counseling office and talk to us, but I promise we do not bite. And just have them try different activities and get to know us as much as possible. Heading into sophomore year, I think one of the big things is, I don't know how many of you had your kiddos try the PSAT this year, but if you have a sophomore or a freshman that's going to be a sophomore next year, right, taking things such as the PSATs, attending college fairs, or the career connections fairs, things like that can be really important because it just gets them exposed early and kind of learn how to navigate sort of the different avenues that they might be looking for. And again, considering, choosing those rigorous classes for junior and maybe even senior year, we've already said it, right, but challenge yourself in areas that make sense. I was never a big history person. I wouldn't take an AP history class, but math and science, those are for me. That's kind of where my brain went. So have your kiddos have those conversations. Once we start getting into junior year, right, I think this is, a lot of times you hear, oh, this is the most important year of high school. I'd argue every year is the most important year, but to go along with it, right, junior year is kind of that final year before we start applying for programs, applying for colleges. So making sure that your kiddos are, maybe taking the PSAT. A lot of, juniors will take the SAT or ACT for the first time in the spring, sort of around that March, April, May timeframe, right? Attend the, NACAC College Fair, which we usually go to, or the past couple of years we have at Bridgewater State. We also partner with Silver Lake in the fall every year to kind of host college fairs in our schools. This year it was at Silver Lake, so next year be on the lookout because it'll be back with us at Whitman-Hanson. And then again, start thinking about senior year and the classes that you want to be taking, and thinking, hey, we still want to be challenging ourselves. Just because we get to senior year doesn't mean just fill your schedule with all the electives, right? Take the classes that make sense. If you're going into a science field, take an extra science class. If you want to become, something in government, take AP government, things like that. And then senior year, right, the big one, really it's about sort of narrowing down our options, really just figuring out what we're going to do after high school. We've mentioned it before, right? Whatever your kiddo's plan is, let us know, right? Because if they're going to college, that's one process. If they want to join the military, that's another, right? It's just it's a big year. But again, the more that you kind of work with us, the better we will be at helping you, getting recommendation letters, the essay projects, all those different types of things. So it's fun. But if you have a freshman, we'll get there senior year. Just ask us all the questions as they come up.
Okay. Great. So I guess what we want to say now is just don't worry. We know we just threw a lot at you, but you can do it. Your kids can do it. And definitely work with school counseling department because we can help. I know, and I think I can speak for all of us, that we probably have parents, especially the further along you get into high school, that we have, like I have senior parents that call me almost every day with questions, and it's okay. We're happy to do that. We're happy to help with that. We encourage you to support your child and to stay on track. Remember, help them find balance. All those things are, school's important, but their physical and mental health is important too. So help them find balance, and really communication with all of us is key. So at this point, what we're going to do is we have some time for questions. You're welcome to either put them in the chat and we can look at that. If you want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to ask a question. And also I want to let you know that we're going to be putting a link in the chat, as well as we'll be sending out an email in a little bit with a evaluation link. And we truly value what you think, and we use it to improve our programming. So we hope you'll take a couple minutes to fill that out. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go back to the Google Meet presentation. And does anybody have any questions that they want to ask?
I have what is hopefully an easy question.
Okay, sure.
My daughter is very set on being a teacher. She desperately wants to be an elementary school teacher. She's a whopping freshman, and she's like, I'm going to Bridgewater, and this is what I'm going to do. My concern is if she takes the personality test and it says, you should be an architect, and the absolute meltdown that child will have over, but I want to be a teacher. And so how is that navigated if those kind of moments maybe present to them a different option than what they've been dreaming?
Well, I think that we just encourage them to be open to different ideas, but knowing that, they may have other plans than what kind of show up as matches, and that's okay too. There are all different types of people who are teachers with all different types of strengths. So I think, that'll be fine. And certainly we need great teachers in our district. So we'd welcome her to do that. So I guess certainly let us know when she takes that test, if she's concerned, let us know. We can work with her individually on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
One thing to add too, like they can even heart their own. They could do a separate search in Naviance for the different careers, and they can just heart whatever else that they like. So those are just some suggestions, but they can also continue to do any searches that they want and save them in their Naviance account.
There's a question in the chat. Mrs. Kerrigan, it says, could students take some of the career outlook quizzes right away to gauge interest? What would you recommend to start looking? When would you recommend them start looking for their interests?
Well, they can do that. There are several of them that we kind of protect their ability to access because we use them as part of our curriculum. And so that's going to be the career interest profiler in 9th grade, the personality in 10th grade. But there certainly is some other interest inventories in there that they can use, with the exception of those. Usually I can turn on and turn off access, and I usually do that. But again, our 10th graders, they should be able to get into Naviance through Clever. Because of an issue with Clever, our 9th graders, we're going to have to actually sign them all up, but it shouldn't take too long. We'll be doing that when we meet with them in February for classes. But if somebody's really interested and they want to do that beforehand, we can certainly do that. Just check in with your counselor and let us know. Any other questions at all? No. Okay. Do you have suggestions for community service and volunteering? And how many hours does that say need? I didn't get
Correct.
past that. Yeah, we don't have a community service requirement for graduation at Whitman-Hanson, but we definitely encourage our kids to do that. And sometimes if they're involved in clubs and activities, there are things that they'll be doing with those clubs and activities. I know like our sports teams will rake lawns for veterans on Veterans Day. If you are interested, like if you're involved in a church or something, they can do their community service there. But all of that stuff can be put on their resume, and they'll need that information for college. Resumes are also part of usually the college scholarship process. And also it's an important thing if they hope to get into some of the National Honor Societies a little bit later. We really look at community service. It's a good thing. It helps build character. But they should choose something that's meaningful to them, not just do it to do it, but to do it because they want to make a difference in something that's important to them. Okay. At this point, I think we will close it up. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. We're happy to talk with you at any time. And again, you will be getting a link. I think I have an email set to go out to you at 7:45 with the link to for the evaluation. So we hope that you'll fill that out. And please know that we love your kids. We're love working with them, and we're really happy to help them with this next step as they have a great experience in high school and they plan for that life after high school. Also, I think Mrs. Cunha just put the link in the chat for the evaluation, so you can look at it there as well. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate your time.